7 o'clock. We'll call the meeting to order. Rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Amy, roll call, please.
Councilmember Canfield.
Here.
Councilmember Chambers.
Here.
Councilmember Salzweedl.
Here.
Councilmember Yankovic.
Here.
Mayor DeVoe.
I'm here. Motion to approve the agenda for tonight.
I'll make that motion.
Support. Discussion or changes? Amy?
Councilmember Canfield.
Yes.
Mayor DeVoe.
Yes.
Councilmember Salzweedl.
Yes.
Councilmember Yankovic.
Yes.
Councilmember Chambers.
Yes. All right, before we move to public comment, I'm going to read a statement here, and then we'll move on. It is the role of the City Council to advocate for the best interest of our residents, business owners, and community organizations. To this end, we often find ourselves working to balance competing interests against a framework of rules and regulations that guide our decisions. That is the case with Riverview Flats. Our city manager has been working with developers Jerry Dancer and Todd Shull for the better part of a year to see if we could repurpose the former Unity School into condos. The city has bargained in good faith throughout the course of this project, which comes with some unusual land requirements from the developers. Last week, our council reviewed these requirements and decided it would not be in the best interest of the greater community to allow this project to move forward. This is not only the council's right, it is our obligation to make decisions for the good of the whole community. It was beyond disappointing to see the reactions of Mr. Zanstra and Mr. Shaw, who immediately lashed out in anger over our decision. Like petulant children, they say our community may no longer use property where we have historically held Riverwalk, Pink Arrow Day, and other community-wide celebrations and events. And even though they've only owned this property since November, they have sent us a $1.53 million invoice for rent on our underground power lines. These tactics are absurd. As a council and a community, we will not be bullied. While we welcome development, it must be a development that makes sense for our community, not simply a project that will unfairly line the pockets of a few. Now, with that being said, we'll move to public comment for items not on the agenda. No public comment? All right, old business is empty. We'll move to 5, new business. Number A, LCTV recommendations for 2019.
I believe Dennis Kent is here tonight to discuss the recommendations from the LCTV committee.
Thank you. I'm Dennis Kent. I'm the chair of the Lowell Cable TV Board. I'd like to acknowledge the work of the Cable TV Board for the work and the time they spent reviewing applications and making these selections. This has been going on for, actually, I think we're in our 10th year now that we've been doing this. And we always have somewhere around $100,000 to distribute. Some years we have more applicants than others. Most of the time we have a little more requests than we have money to distribute, so we have to make some decisions. This year was pretty close. I can just, if you want, I can just read through these if you like, which ones we're recommending. I think you have them in your packets also. Let's see, Lowell administration of the fund, $4,000. Showboat replacement, restroom project, $50,000. I should note that that's a 3-year request. We did not act on all 3 years. I think we can, council can decide how they want to handle that going forward, because we are recommend, board that recommends to the council. Englehart Library Reading Garden, $4,500. This, we believe, will complete that project. Some money was provided to that project last year also. Flat River Outreach Ministries, $13,760.93 for a security upgrade, which we the board seemed to feel that was a needed upgrade there. Junior achievements, it's kind of a newer one for us. They had a total program, which doesn't show here, of $6,000. Well, they requested from this board was $2,000, And that's for the, basically the capital equipment. This fund generally will provide for capital expenditures rather than program expenditures. Lowell Arts Council, $7,245 was requested, $6,000 was approved for rental equipment for their facility. We reduced that somewhat because we had to make some choices on a couple of projects, and there was a representative there. That seemed to be an acceptable reduction that they could live with. Historical Museum, $3,000 for a new exhibit. Lowell Charter Township, the kind of continuation of the Grand River Park, or Riverfront Park expenditures. That's obviously a much bigger project, and there's multiple funding sources. We allocated $20,000 to that. And the YMCA Energize Lowell, that one we reduced by quite a bit because most of their request was more programmatic than capital expenditures, so we got it down to basic items that were more tangible than programmatic. So that comes to a total of $100,004, $370.93. Suppose we could put in 7 cents and round it up. So that's what we have. That's what we're recommending to this board.
All right, any questions for Dennis? Any discussion on the showboat deal either? Are they just going to then come back to you next year again?
I assume it'll come back every 3 years. I think under your charter, you could set aside that amount for the next 2 years if you chose to. That's a decision you can make. I don't know what you have to make it.
I brought it to Mike's attention, and he was going to look into it and get back with us.
Okay. Good.
But other than that, I sit on that board too, and I just want to thank Dennis for his leadership, and Mark and Jeff and Bill and Sue and Tim from the townships. They do a really good job of trying to distribute it fairly and equally, and they really take their time of what they feel is warranted under the guidelines that were set, so they do a really good job. So good job, Dennis.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Dennis? No? You need a motion or consensus on these recommendations, or we just?
We need to take action on it.
Okay. Anybody want to make that motion to approve the LCTV recommendation?
So moved.
I'll support.
All right. Any other discussion? Amy?
Councilmember Salzweedl?
Yes.
Councilmember Yankovic?
Yes.
Councilmember Chambers?
Yes.
Councilmember Canfield?
Yes.
Mayor DeWort?
Yes. All right, public hearing date for the DNR grant.
Set the public meeting
Yeah, for March 18th. All right, if there's no objections, we're going to set a public hearing for March 18th, 7 p.m. here. The purpose is to receive input and comments from the public on the proposed application by the city to the DNR trust fund grant for the non-motorized trail improvement. You can go to the City Hall website, you can see a copy of the proposal and the trail route. Okay. Item C, Mr. Buchel, police accreditation.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and City Council. A few months back, I spoke to all of you about getting into the accreditation process, and in late February, Sergeant Hurst and I attended the accreditation training in Lansing with the Michigan Association of Chiefs of Police. Accreditation is a time-proven way of helping law enforcement agencies calculate and improve their overall performance. The foundation of accreditation lies in the adoption of standards containing a clear statement of professional objectives, while ensuring transparency and accountability. Participating agencies conduct a thorough self-evaluation to determine how existing operations can be adapted to meet these objectives. When these procedures are in place, a team of trained assessors verifies that the acceptable standards have been successfully implemented. Accreditation status represents a significant professional achievement. The accreditation acknowledges the implementation of policies and procedures that are conceptually sound and operate effective while reflecting community values and guarding the quality of life. The MACP has pursued the concept of developing a voluntary law enforcement accreditation program for the Michigan law enforcement agencies. This effort has resulted in the formation of the Michigan Law Enforcement Accreditation Commission, and it consisting of commissioners appointed by the MACP. Personnel from the MACP provide support services to the commission and to the applicant agencies. The attitudes, training, and actions of personnel in Michigan accredited law enforcement agencies best reflect compliance with the standards contained in this program. Policy and procedure is based on accreditation will not ensure a crime-free environment for citizens, nor will it ensure the absence of litigation against law enforcement agencies and executives. However, consistent application and reinforcement of these written department directives will strengthen the community trust. The effective and comprehensive leadership through professionally based development is directly influenced by a law enforcement accreditation program that is comprehensive, attainable, and based on the standards that reflect professional service delivery. Attached is a contract that I'd like you to authorize me to enter in with the MACP and allow me to act as the primary accreditation manager along with Sergeant Christopher Hurst to oversee the process and implementation of the accreditation of the Lowell Police Department and authorize a one-time expenditure of $1,500 for the initial accreditation fee. This will be paid out of the contractual line item of the police department budget. And I recommend that the city council approve the Lowell Police Department to begin the accreditation process with the Michigan Association of Chiefs of Police.
What's the total?
It's a $1,500 initial fee and then $600 every year after that. And that just ensures that we maintain and stay up on the policies and procedures that
How
we
long
recommend.
does the process take before you receive that initial?
The initial accreditation will take up to 2 years.
How long has the MCAP been doing this? Is this something relatively new, Chief?
They started their own process about 3 years ago. Rockford Police Department was actually the first police department to become accredited under this program. They're actually going to be our mentors when that actually helps with them being relatively close.
How many are doing it now?
We had 16 agencies that were at this last training, and we're just under 50 for the entire state of Michigan.
Mr. Mayor, may I speak? Just so you're aware how this project kind of started, there's been this national accreditation process through an organization called CALIA, and they do a number of different accreditation standards for many departments across the United States, but their process that they encounter is really not cost prohibitive for most communities to even participate in. And from what I understand, the Michigan Association of Chiefs of Police, they put this in place basically as a more cost-effective types of accreditation, so they don't have to go through the national process through CALIA.
Good. Any other questions for the chief or Michael? And you guys, you and Sergeant Hurst will come back and
We'll keep
provide
you
us
updated
regular updates.
periodically.
Fantastic.
Probably semi-annually would be most effective.
Perfect. All right, well, I'll make that motion that the Lowell City Council approve for the Lowell Police Department to begin the accreditation process with the Michigan Association of Chiefs of Police.
I'll support.
Any other discussion? Amy?
Councilmember Chambers,
Yes.
Councilmember Canfield,
Yes.
Mayor DeWort.
Yes.
Councilmember Salzweedl.
Yes.
Councilmember Yankovic.
Yes.
All right, the last item, social media archiving. Michael.
Yes. Recently, I met with Archive Social, a vendor who provides archiving to governmental social media pages. Well, one might think this is a bizarre task. The fact of the matter is freedom of information requests on governmental social media pages are becoming more common. There are a number of examples where municipalities have made payment to civil suits because of improper responses to FOIA requests from social media pages. In the event we were to receive one of these requests, both the chief of police and I believe we may be vulnerable. An example might be if a comment was made that somebody wanted to FOIA but was in fact deleted by the writer. While it might be deleted, the municipality could still be deemed responsible to provide the data. If we needed to contact Facebook to require a deleted record, it would be near impossible. Archive Social would be able to provide us with an archiving service that would actually be able to acquire even these types of Facebook posts and things of that nature, identical to what we currently use for our email system. I viewed the product and it has the ability to archive material for us very easily. The state of Michigan, City of Battle Creek, Calhoun County, and the village of Sparta use the services of Archive Social. I discussed this with Julius Succi, the village manager of Sparta, and he recognized the need for the service. He views it as a very low-cost approach in the event one of these complaints ever occurred. Total annual cost for this subscription would be $2,388. The cost for this project through the end of this fiscal year is $796. This would archive the city and police department Facebook page along with the city Twitter and YouTube accounts. Funds are available in the data processing fund to complete this. This is really a very good insurance policy after review of our FOIA processes, and I'm recommending the Lowell City Council enter into an agreement with Archive Social to provide archiving services to our social media pages.
So this year it's only $796.
Just to get us through the fiscal year, so,
Okay.
but it
And
would
then
be a year
it's
subscription.
the 2,388
Yeah.
thereafter?
Correct.
Does it require different posting methods or anything, or do they just store everything?
Basically, they can store everything. Basically, the way it looks is if we had a FOIA request, we could just enter a couple keywords and they could actually be able to they'll be able to pull the material, even if somebody deleted it. It's on, once it comes onto our page and it's automatically there. Both the chief and I watched their demo. It was to us it was a no-brainer.
You do have a FOIA, right? Is this beneficial to you?
Yes, it is, because if the information is nearly impossible to recover, they can actually get it for us, and actually we can get it ourselves. They showed us how to do it.
So I take it they have a link that when they see something from the city of Lowell posted, they just automatically archive it. From
Yeah,
all of our servers.
it's set up so we can just
Keywords.
it's set up so basically the service, it connects to our pages once we agree to once we subscribe.
And they're gonna start retroactively, they're not gonna only archive stuff from,
Mine is probably it'll be from the day.
okay.
Okay.
And they'll keep it forever, right? As long as we have a contract with them, they don't,
Correct.
5 or 7 years or anything like that.
Yeah, it would be in accordance with our public records laws.
Yeah, thank you.
One question, if we do end our agreement with them, do we lose that period of time then? Because I had that happen with some stuff that we did in our business. Once you quit paying, you can't go back and get anything.
That's a good question. I don't know.
We
yet.
drop it with them, and the next week we get a FOIA, and they go, sorry, you're no longer a customer, you can't have
Yeah.
that.
That's a good question.
There should just be a clause, maybe Dick could put that, should this agreement end, that we have
Everything we pay
opportunity to
for.
go back and.
Okay. I can do that. I can follow up with that.
So we'll bring this back to
Mhm.
You want to table it?
Yeah,
Okay.
we'll do that.
All right, we'll table it.
All right, that's it for new business, board and commission reports, Mr. Canfield.
All coming up, Lara Parks and Airport Board meeting coming up in the next 2 weeks.
Mr. Chambers,
I have mine coming up, like Power and Planning Commission.
Mr. Salzville.
I have Arbor Board coming on up, and then I won't have the LCTV fund until December of this year.
Mr. Yankovic.
Got nothing for you.
All right, I don't either. Fire authority's canceled, DDA is Thursday. I think that's it. Any questions, comments, or discussion on the monthly reports? City manager's report, Michael.
As we all know, on Thursday, we took action to demolish the showboat, and obviously it was a bittersweet day for many in the community. The good news is we are getting a new boat, and we're moving very rapidly at attempting to do that. Rich and the committee has been very active. They've met about 3 times last week on issues pertaining to it, and they're meeting a few more times this week, mainly to start getting the mechanical and the engineering components of the boat put in place. So we're moving forward with that. Also, we've also inventoried all of the items that we kept from when we demoed the boat. We do have an inventory list where we can actually start looking at fundraising efforts for those pieces. So we're going to be moving forward with that. We'll be coming back to council before we move forward in any fundraising efforts. But there's a lot of things in the works on that, and Rich and the committee are working very hard on that. Wanted to inform you at the next council meeting, you will have an application to move forward through the, at the end of the last fiscal year, the state created an economic development fund, a critical infrastructure fund for communities less than 10,000 people. In addition to what we did with the rural program that we recently submitted, this project, we're able to submit for another project. If you recall, a couple weeks ago, I came and approached with you with the SAW grant. And one of the projects we talked about was the underground street work on Amity, Lincoln Lake, and Elm. We believe that project might be eligible for up to $250,000 in funding from the state of Michigan through this new program. And Williams & Works is working with us on the application. There's going to be a need for, I believe, a resolution at the next council meeting, and we will be presenting that to you at the next meeting. Lighthouse, we are, myself and Old Lake Power, Steve from Old Lake Power, we're pretty close to having all of our agreements in place for them to move forward for their pretreatment. And once we have that finalized, we will make sure you have a copy of the agreement as well. But it's moving along very well, and we're very close to completion on that. Wanted to mention to you today, there was an article in the Detroit News pertaining to Proposal A. And one of the big issues with Proposal A has been it hasn't really tracked with the economy, and it's really left a lot of communities statewide in jeopardy for revenue. As revenue went down substantially in 2008 because of the economic crisis, while property values have gone up near to what they were at the 2008 levels, while the property values have gone up, the revenue amounts because of Proposal A have not. And it's an issue statewide for many municipalities. It's impacted us as well in Lowell. One of the advantages we've had, where it hasn't been as much of an impact, is the fact that the Highland Hills subdivision was built after 2008, and I believe that that's helped stabilize a lot of our issues. Otherwise, we'd probably be in the same component as a lot of these other communities. But one of the things that through this discussion is it looks like the legislature is actually going to finally take a look at reviewing Proposal A. Not sure they're going to do anything about it or anything of that nature, but it was pleased to even recognize that the legislature is willing to even look at it, because now they are starting to recognize that the structure and vehicle that we fund local governments in the state of Michigan is broken. And maybe this will help us try and repair that funding mechanism. So we'll wait and see what happens with that. The Rec Park Committee is going to meet again this Thursday. We will have a booth at Expo trying to get input from people about what they would like to see there. We also are planning on having a charrette here in City Hall on Wednesday, April 17th. More details to follow for that.
Sorry, 6 or 7 for that?
7 p.m. 7 p.m. on Thursday. And lastly, I was actually asked to be the keynote speaker this year in the Memorial Day Veterans event over at the cemetery, and I was honored to be asked. I think there's a lot of people in this committee who could do this better than I could, but they asked me to do it, and I'm going to accept the request. So that's all I have.
Hopefully it won't be 98 degrees again like it was last year. Oh, it was a long walk down there. I think you were wearing a coat, weren't you? Of course. Yeah. Nothing new in appointments, Amy, no application. Council comments, Cliff? Jim?
Oh, last weekend we were all over in Frankenmuth, and I thought Saturday was much better than Friday night, but I enjoyed it, and if you want to go out of town with these three guys, I say don't go.
Right.
Frank Move was great. It's nice. I know it takes a little bit of money, a few $100 out of the city coffers to do that, but we have a lot of responsibility here, and it just helps us to do our job better. So it was nice to see 4 guys over there learning new things. One thing I think that we could possibly work on a little bit that slipped away from us, old business. I think there's just some things we could do. We talked about contracts at one point, looking at some of our things, getting updates on Showwood. I just think there's some things for transparency that you guys are working on things, different committees, but I think we should just make it our goal to find 3 or 4 things on old business, and sometimes you have to dig a little bit, but there's some things that have kind of gone off the end of the earth that we've dropped the ball on, and we're kind of those, but that's it.
Mark?
Yeah, last weekend, we were at MML classes. They're very informative. We actually learned some things and picked up some things and are now applying them, so it kind of sucks that we're away from our families, but for the citizens, it's a big help, so I like going to them and I enjoy doing them. So.
I've never went to one where we haven't learned something different than we learned at the last one. So, no, I had a good time. Thanks, Jim, for driving relatively safely. That's all I got. Your turn.
With that, I make a motion to adjourn at 7:27.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We're adjourned.